And tonight we're here to enjoy a conversation with Senator Patrick Leahy about his 48 years as a U.S. Senator serving under 9 presidents. That's spanning the era from President Gerald Ford's pardon of Nixon and the end of the funding of the Vietnam War through President Biden's election, January 6th assault on the Capitol in Biden's first 2 years. It's pretty impressive. We're privileged to have 2 former staffers and longtime friends of the Senator leading tonight's conversation. The Honorable William K. Sessions III, who is U.S. District Judge for Vermont, and the Honorable Beryl A. Howell, the U.S. District Judge for Washington, D.C. Thank you both for being here. It's my pleasure to introduce them as we begin tonight's conversation.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much, and I will keep the introductions quite short. This is intended to be an evening with Patrick Leahy to talk about his life, to reflect upon his 48 years of service and a few more years of living. And we've got 2 people who will be asking him questions. Both of us have had a long experience and a close friendship with Patrick. First, let me introduce Beryl Howell. Beryl Howell is the chief, or just resigned as chief, is now back as a district court judge for the District of Columbia. She, in fact, was the chief judge of the District of Columbia District Court for the past 7 years. Prior to that, she graduated at Bryn Mawr, Columbia. She then went to work with Patrick Leahy. Thank you. She went to work with Patrick in the 1960s, or 1990s. She's not quite that old, actually. So she worked with Patrick in the 1990s. Eventually, she went into practice as a United States Attorney in the Eastern District of New York. That's Brooklyn, as a prosecutor. Was involved in private practice. Then was appointed to the U.S. Sentencing Commission. We served on the Sentencing Commission together for a number of years. She was then appointed by President Obama in 2010 to the U.S. District Court, and she became Chief Judge in 2016, 2017. This is an extraordinary period to be Chief Judge in Washington, D.C., because as Chief Judge, he's responsible for the grand jury. And if you have noticed, over the past few years, the grand jury has been quite active in Washington, D.C., and she has been called upon to make numerous rulings about law that be applied in the grand jury process. Now, all of that is secret. It's just coming out now. In fact, it came out 2 days ago to the press, and today, and I assume tomorrow as well, you'll see Judge Howell's name more and more as her decisions are reflected in the media. And I have known Patrick, actually, I met him in 1974. I don't think he would remember it at that particular point, but I interviewed him when he was the state's attorney. He actually was the state's attorney before becoming senator. I then worked on one of his campaigns against Governor Stelling in field work in 1986, and then in 1992 he asked me if I would chair his campaign. His re-election campaign, which I did. And that was an experience, a wonderful experience. And then, based upon the recommendation of Patrick Leahy, frankly, I was nominated by President Clinton, and then ultimately nominated to the Sentencing Commission by President Clinton, and ultimately nominated to the chair of the Sentencing Commission by President Obama, all based upon the recommendation of Patrick Leahy. So This is just intended to be just a discussion. We're going to talk about, ask questions of his life, and his reflections, both on politics over the 48 years that he was in the Senate, but also his observations today, and how the Senate has changed over the years. So, without further ado, let's get to the question. Now, we are going to go for approximately 1 hour, and then we're going to open it up for questions by the audience. So we'll pass the microphone around, and think about your questions, because the senator is willing to answer. All right, so let me begin with the first question. Montpelier in the 1950s. Oh! Montpelier in the 1950s. You were raised in Montpelier. What was that like?
Well, it was is my microphone working? Yes, no? Let me use this. Is this one? Okay. It was a city of about 8,300. There are those who say it's the same 8,300 today. It didn't really change that much, but it's a wonderful city to grow up in. My parents had a printing business on State Street. We lived in the front. The Leahy press was in the back. And the beauty of that, I'd be around all the time and seeing things, learning to read very, very early. And later on, I had a paper route. And the State House, you could just go through there anytime you want. Something that I mentioned at one point when about 4 years old, when my friends, we dragged our tricycles up to the top floor, raced down through the place was empty, we thought, came through a door, and here was this desk, which looked like about 12 feet high. We ran right to the side of it. The person leaned over and said, "Yes." We said, "Are you the governor?" "Yes, I am, now get out." Now, we thought, now governors let me in there more often, as I don't bang their desk, but we thought that was pretty funny. Our parents did not. But it was a wonderful place to grow up. I mean, you looked at your bicycle on the front steps, you never locked doors, everybody knew everybody, whether you were in a church or the grocery store or anything else. But parents knew families that had problems. They'd bring, when they go to the grocery store, they'd bring a bag of groceries for different families to help. It was just wonderful. I enjoyed it.
You chose a career in law, and why was that?
I found the law fascinating. I mean, I went to undergraduate at St. Mike's, but I found the law fascinating. And I think my father would have loved to have had me take over the Leahy press, but I like courtrooms. I would sit in courtrooms. I liked watching what was going on. Went to Georgetown, enjoyed it very much. And the best part of that, while in law school, Marcel and I got married. And then at the end of law school, turned down what a lot of people would consider wonderful jobs. We just wanted to get back home to Vermont. And did. In fact, it was law in Birmingham.
And you chose to become a state's attorney. So how did that happen?
It was interesting because on Friday afternoon, Governor Howell called me, and we lived in Burlington. I was in his law firm. He said, "Why don't you come up to my house?" "Yes, sir, Governor." Boom. I was in a hurry. And he said, "The state attorney is going to quit on Monday. I want you appointed for that." And I said, "Well, Governor, I turned down the chance to get a master's in criminal law. But yeah, I got my law books, but, well, go home and read them." there's a mess in that office, a huge backlog of cases to be tried and to be argued in Vermont Supreme Court. Clean up the mess. And at the end of the year, if you want to leave, we'll come in our law firm. So I said, sweet deal. So I went back and tried cases like that. I was on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I did night when I didn't get a call from the police. All the things would change in Miranda rules and so on. But I'd go with them because I wanted to make sure we won the cases. And it did. I loved it because I was in the courtroom all the time. I just loved trying cases and argued a very, very large number in the Vermont Supreme Court. And I thought for a young lawyer, I was 24 when I got admitted to the bar, I thought, boy, this is quite an experience.
So you were state's attorney for 8 years, and then in 1974, you decided that the next step was the U.S. Senate.
Oh, Marcel and I discussed it. And there's no big decision made without Marcel. If you don't see Marcel, she's right there in the back. She's the real hero of this family. And so, and we were told that I was reminded that since the 17th Amendment for popular election of senators, there had never been a senator under 50 elected in Vermont. I was 33 when I announced. Couldn't wait to turn 34, so I stopped seeing headlines saying I was 33. And Vermont was the only state in the union that had never elected a Democrat. So most people said, okay, kids, you can have the nomination, it's worth it. You should have run for city council or something and got some experience. But it was, they called it the Children's Crusade. We had volunteers. We didn't have money, we had volunteers. All over the state. Work like mad, I tried cases during the day, go out somewhere and speak to constituents in the evening. Our car was barely drivable at the end of the campaign. And there was one thing that really bothered me. 5 days before the election, the state's newspaper, not Angela Lynn's, I should say, a state newspaper which was usually very good on political things, had a big front page headline, big type, poll dooms Leahy. Said I was 35 points behind. That did not make for a comfortable weekend. But I did frame very little press things in my office, but I framed that headline, poll dooms Leahy, big type. With another headline 5 days later, Leahy unexpectedly wins. So I'll take it. But I did find in going down to, I do remember walking into the Senate as the second youngest member and senator-elect, the second youngest member of the Senate. A guy named Joe Biden was the youngest. And the President pro tem, the oldest one, who curmudgeon, because he takes a cigar out of his mouth and said, "Boy, how old are you?" But I didn't want to say 34 and a half because it sounded like, so I said, "I'll be 35 next year, Mr. Chairman. Anybody ever tell you you're too young to be in the United States Senate?" And I was quite a bit taller than you. I said, "Yes, my opponent for one." He loved it. He was a very conservative senator. We became very good friends.
So you were a very young senator. And how did you make your way among the ranks of these much older, established members who thought that they needed to teach you something. How did you make your mark there?
I tried to make sure that any committee I was on, anything I went to, that I really learned the subject and learned it well. I didn't talk, but some would rush to every microphone they could. I wanted to wait until we started negotiating legislation. And I wanted to make it work. And I would work with both Republicans and Democrats to do that. And learn how other people are doing it. Because I found that I learned from people, even those I thought might be much different politically. And the first big test of that was Vietnam. And Beryl, you know that story, but they're going to have to reauthorize the war in Vietnam. It's still going on. And I had opposed the war in Vietnam. We had it had to be reauthorized in the Armed Services Committee, and I was on there temporarily. I had everybody loved me meeting the president. Asked me down to the Oval Office. I'd never been in the Oval Office, and Jerry Ford was president. Said, why I should do it. Henry Kissinger came to my office, and everybody shook him, and explained why. I said, nobody in Vermont had ever voted against the war in Vietnam. We've had Vermonters say they didn't like the idea, but they always voted to continue. And Jim Schlesinger was Secretary of Defense. So anyway, we go to the vote. They call the first vote to reauthorize. It fails by one vote. I'm the junior most and newest person on there. I did get a look, not of appreciation from the conservative chair. And then they did 4 more. Each of the 4 lost by one vote. And again, I was the newest member of the committee. I remember 2 things that happened then. He turned to a very conservative senator, Harry Flynn Byrd, no relation to Bob Byrd, who was an independent and voted with the Democrats. He had always supported the war. I remember the chairman, Secretary General, said, Mr. Byrd, did you intend to vote no? He said, yes. They lied to me long enough. I thought of the chairman turned to somebody and he said, you best get the president on the phone. His war is over. And then ended. I did have the main editorial right at the Burlington Free Press, which carried a lot of weight at the time, who supported the war, and told me if I voted against it, he'd make sure I was a one-term senator. I didn't listen to that.
So, at 34, you and Marcel moved to Washington with a young family, and your children were raised in Vermont and in Washington, and as your profile as a senator, as chairman of powerful Senate committees, the most powerful Senate committees, grew, your public profile grew. Could you tell us a little bit about raising children through a very public life?
I give Marcel most of the credit there, because she made it very clear that when we were home, and things were set aside to spend time with the children. You want to go for a hike on a canal path, whatever, let's all go. If there's something that being seen in Washington and we could go into, let's go, that they might want to go. Sit there and help them with their homework. I hated the late night session because I wouldn't get home in time to tuck them into bed. But during that time also, a person who helped an awful lot, helping us settle, was Senator Stafford's wife. I remember Senator Stafford was Mr. Republican. He became my senior senator, and the closest colleague I had. But we wanted to do things with the children. We wanted them to know there's a life, not as a senator's child. We tried to keep them out of the press, trying to keep their photographs not being seen anywhere, but they could come and do things that were fun with us. And we had a lot of that. I mean, everything from the panda cage to other parts of the Smithsonian. But what I found, I liked very much. Every so often, they'd have friends that they'd known and played with soccer, everything else, for months, and they'd have one of them say, I just found out your father's a senator. They never talked that way. We made sure they never knew that.
So you, during the course of your career, were chairs of 3 of the most powerful committees: agriculture, judiciary, and then finally appropriations. I'm interested for you to tell us your reflections about those committees and the responsibilities that you felt for running those committees.
When I came to the Senate, I was the junior most member of the Senate. It was actually a 99-member Senate. It could have been a tied race in New Hampshire. Classmate of mine from Georgetown had to do the race over and he won. But I'm the junior most. And one senator, younger and senior to me, Joe Biden. But I was told right from the beginning by the old member, everything is based on the seniority system. Hear me, boy? And I said, first thing I'm going to do is change that seniority system. Now, after I studied it for a few decades and understood it, but I realized you're going to have big committees that you hope someday you maybe chair, and then work with both Republicans and Democrats on it. We did this in agriculture, and for years people wanted to have an organic farm bill. I said, we'll pass one. They said, that's crunchy granola, all the big agribusinesses from the South were against it. We passed it. That crunchy granola idea is now a $60+ billion a year corporate bill. A whole lot of other things. Farm to school breakfast. And I will always be moved by a school bus driver who told me how he'd go into a county which had both a very wealthy area and a very non-wealthy area. The wealthy area, they'd be kind of pushing their kids out, come on, you're going to miss your school bus, you got to get to school. Very unwealthy one, they've been standing out there for some time because they're going to get breakfast and they're going to get lunch and maybe the only meals they have that day. I have never forgotten that. And I've always pleased with all the work that to put together coalitions to get that legislation. And then when I entered the judiciary, I said we can make some changes in judiciary. Some are very technical things. The first update of our patent laws in 50 years. But at that time, the highest per capita number, or second highest per capita number of patents in the country were out of Vermont. And I want to make sure that stayed. Major changes in our criminal law. The Violence Against Women Act. Joe Biden and I worked on that. I give him the credit for beginning it. He had been out with hospitalized for a while, and then came back to make sure we finished it. But then I updated it, and I added the LGBTQ community. I added children, and added, and this is an example of how you form coalitions. Senator Creighton, very, very conservative Republican, came to me and said, we're going to update this. Can we add Native Americans? Because they're abused on their, by those who don't come under the jurisdiction of the tribe. And they have, I've been to these shelters and seen how abused some of these women have been, and they have no recourse. And we worked together, and we passed it. And I remember President Obama calling to congratulate me when we got it passed early one evening. I said, Mr. President, call Mike Craig. Because if this conservative Republican had not joined me, we never would have passed it. And I use that, I tell that story, I mean I could tell 1,000 similar stories that passing so much legislation over the years. That was the way to do it. And then in the Appropriations Committee, it was beneficial to Vermont.
Are you thinking of the Great Lake of Lake Champlain? Perhaps?
We still get money with Cleveland Lake Champlain every year under the Great Lakes program. I consider it a great, big, beautiful lake. We do have a apartment in Burlington we can look out at it. I can't see it from our farmhouse in Middlesex, but we can in Burlington. But I found in the appropriations that there were things you could do you couldn't do anywhere else. You could help specific people. Finding areas, reading programs. I had my first library card when I was 40 years old at the Howell Library in Montpelier. The children's library is a little room with those room in the basement. Wonderful librarian, that's sober. By the end of third grade, I'd read all of Dickens, Robert Louis Stevenson, and Mark Twain, and everything else. And now they have a much larger upstairs one, where they have special programs for people around the area and Montpelier. If you have, like, say, an 11-year-old who's dyslexic and has trouble reading, there's a program for that. If you have somebody who is fortunate to grow up in a printing business and read way above the level like I did, they have a program for that. If they have somebody who's struggling reading, they have a program for that. And everybody is there. And I probably shouldn't tell this, but I will. I've been in a number of Batman movies, as every President Pro Tem of the Senate does, and they paid a lot of money. I gave every cent they paid me to that children's library. And two things you'll notice about. One, I was doing a reading hour, volunteering reading hour for the 4, 5, 6-year-olds on a Saturday morning. Somebody handed me a note. I said, this is terrible, terrible. Batman's enemies and their pictures here in the library, and I can't figure out the clues. Grab my phone, are you nearby? I need help. Drawer personal, inbox, Batman. And it was one of the suits, Warner Brothers had flown somebody with a suit local actor. Well, he couldn't figure out the clues either, but the children did, and found all the pictures. So on the way out, it goes, I want to thank you, children. Oh, you're welcome, Mr. Batman. It was worth it just to watch that. But the important thing is that anybody who deals in the printed word, like a publisher, your paper here, knows kids have to learn to read. If they don't learn to read, if they can't read, nothing else follows. And so I do love coming in there, and I do look at way up in the corner, there's a little tiny bat sitting on the corner.
I'm just going to ask one quick question. which is, could you explain your fascination with Batman of all the Marvel superheroes? Why Batman?
Well, I started reading when I was 4, and I remember going to the local store and wanted to pay with my 10 cents. And you remember that? None of you old enough. The comic book was 10 cents from Batman. I just loved it because he had no superpowers. He had to deal with his brains. And on a very sober thing, I passed the first legislation in the world to ban the export of landmines. I was told I would get 6 or 7 votes at best to ban those.
This is a prop.
I worked with DC Comics. Quick story, this is it, the horror landmine, deaths of innocent. And the story is that parents who worked for the Bruce Wayne Company, which is of course Batman, been killed in a conflict area. Their child had been taken prisoner. Batman goes there to save her and walks through the jungles in terror himself because he has no idea he's going to step on a landmine at all. But he saves her. And if we negotiated for 2 days on this, myself and the editors now, he's got the little child, helicopter's coming in to pick him up. And the child says, look at the shiny toy. He goes, no. And it's boom, there's blood all over the page. Now, our point was, there's no happy endings in landmines. Marcel's been with landmine victims all over the world. She knows what it's like to go in there. I know what it's like to see these landmine, in order to bring aid to landmine victims, oftentimes ours. And when it came to a vote in the Senate, my band passed 100-0. Every senator had read that. And a conservative chair in the House said, I'll take it up and pass it in the House. And we did. But the thing is, and I would bring senators of both parties to these landmine areas. I mean, it's easy to get somebody to go to the Paris air show. It's not so easy to say, we're going to go to this operating room in the jungle. We're going to see people struggling on this. But everybody who's come back has worked with it. I'll close with this. A Vietnam veteran, or American veteran who was paralyzed in Vietnam, a Marine, Bobby Moore, is one of my all-time heroes. He started a program, Vietnam vets, or veterans from Vietnam, and trying to bring aid to the people that fought against, who paralyzed him for life. And he said, do you suppose we could bring your landmine, and he can get prosthetics or wheelchairs or Vietnamese land? We did not even have full relations with Vietnam at that time. And I went down to see President George H.W. Bush, the first President Bush, and Secretary Baker, Secretary of State. And I said to him, I told him about what I wanted to do, but he wanted to put the money through this, what they call NGO, non-government operation, the veterans, American veterans of the war, to get wheelchairs or prosthetics. President Bush said, I think it's a great idea. Secretary Baker, I think it's a great idea. And I said, well, Assistant Secretary so-and-so is very much against the idea. Bush turns to Baker, and I've never heard Baker call him Jimmy. They said, Jimmy, get him on the phone. Baker gets him on the phone, speakerphone. Bush and I are sitting there. He goes, and the guy starts to say, oh yeah, Leahy's down here all the time, but it's too soon to do anything like that. The Vietnamese got to do more of this, and blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, I understand. Look, I got somebody here who thinks it's a great idea. Mr. President? A few weeks later, I lead my usual bipartisan delegation of Republican Democratic senators. We went there, we gave wheelchairs to people who have been crawling on the ground or hopping on stools, all from American landmines. One was this very dignified man next to her. You could see his legs stopped at his knee. And he's just staring at me. God, this man must hate me. So American landmine blew his legs off. And they said, Senator, would you pick him up and put him in his wheelchair? And Marcel's a medical surgical nurse, and I would pick him up and to bring him home. I picked him up, he stared at me all the time. And the next time he grabbed my shirt, he pulled me down. And he kissed me. Now, that was, what, Marcel, 25 years ago? Or more, probably 30 years ago. It was yesterday. Same thing happened to John Lennon, who was senator from Ohio at that time. John's commented on our bus tickets back to the hotel. Anybody complains about anything on this trip after what you see, I'm throwing you off the bus. Girl, okay, Colonel, okay. It's too long an answer.
Because I can go back just a little bit to the Judiciary Committee. So you have served on the committee or been chair of the committee for the confirmation of so many Supreme Court justices. And a couple of judges. I'm not going to ask you about that.
They were doing unanimously.
Right. And I'm interested in two things. The first is, how did you personally deal with the level of rancor that is created in a confirmation process, especially when you're the chair? And then second, how do you think the confirmation process has changed over the years?
Well, to give it the benefit of the doubt, it's deteriorated terribly. And we're supposed to be there to advise and consent and give advice. When I first came there, I remember Barry Goldwater coming to my office and I was going to recommend Senator Dale O'Connor to Ronald Reagan. He said, she's more conservative than you and others are, but she's honest, she's fair, she's knowledgeable, I hope you vote for her. I voted for her, and I think 97, maybe it was unanimous. And she turned out to be one of the best justices we've had. Now it's become a polarized political thing, which sometimes influences presidents to nominate people who should not be there because they're supposed to come through a political agenda, whether it's abortion or anything else. The country sees this, and I think one of the reasons why the level of trust in the Supreme Court has gone down because of this. And I voted for a lot of Republican nominees as well as Democrats, but I've also voted against nominees, judges, including judges nominated by Democratic presidents. Because I wanted somebody, my view is, and I've argued a lot with Vermont Supreme Court, Vermont State Court, the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, I wanted to see a judge up there that, if I had a case there, whether I was plaintiff or defendant, but I expect a fair judge. And others, now there's more and more, you've got to be able to pass a litmus test. I think the courts are being hurt on that. I was one of the few Republicans, or one of the few Democrats, rather, who voted for the Republican Chief Justice, John Roberts. And I did not because I agreed with him, but I thought he was an honest, and I still do, an honest and good man. But I voted against a number of others because I didn't think they were. And I didn't think they told the truth in their hearings. And that included several I voted against.
All right, so if you all noticed, when Patrick sat down, he took his camera out. So having followed and held on tightly to his coattails for a number of years on his Judiciary Committee staff, I can tell you his camera went with him everywhere. And just as I was getting a backroom look behind the scenes, he was taking photographs of it. Even when it made presidents uncomfortable because you were taking pictures of him signing bills. People may not know this, but you're blind in one eye, but you became a sharpshooter in college, and you're a photographer, a very good photographer. So tell us some of your favorite photographs and the stories to go along with them.
Well, some are just fun things. Like, when the president's signing a bill, there's members of Congress there, they're all trying to get in the picture. I'm one guy's in back row, but how do I get a picture of the president's hand? Because the press is out there, the president's here, they can't see his hand sign. They can see he's up there signing. In a lot of presidential libraries, the only picture they have of the president's hand signing is one I took. I took one, and it was filmed with President Reagan, and I was going out to the Associated Press and said, "Can we have your film?" I said, "Well, yeah, but give it back." And I was heading to the airport, flying to Beijing, China. And the next morning, the paper in Beijing, the English-speaking one, had two pictures of one was Reagan signing the bill taken from the front, forwarded by Associated Press. The other one of his hand, forwarded by Patrick Leahy. And I got a better seat at the table. But no, I like taking the pictures because I think pictures are a great way for history. How many people read everything that happened when the barge, was it the Hillcrest, whatever, crashed? But you remember the pictures. How many, you weren't in New York, but you remember the pictures of the planes hitting the Twin Towers. And these are the things you remember. Remember the pictures of your children and grandchildren in grade school. The pictures last forever. And I would take the camera with me. I do have in my book one funny one where President George H.W. Bush has a Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck cap on. And this place went on a very serious senator, summer one. Everybody had a cocktail in hand. We're in the family quarters and said, "Pat, you must have your camera with you." I said, "I have it in my pocket." He said, "Take a picture." I said, "You don't want a picture of this." He said, "Come on." He said, "I'm buying the drinks of the President of the United States. Take the picture." Of course, we're all laughing. I took the pictures. It's not a bad picture. But he liked it. I gave him copies. But I also have a picture that I have in my office. And if you come to, now I have an office at UVM, you come there, there's this picture of we have kind of grizzled 5-day growth tomato in a refugee camp. I only took pictures that they gave me permission to. I had a camera, black and white. He came out and indicated, "Want me to take this picture?" And I take it. I hung it on my wall. I said, he's looking at me and said, "I'm a poor man in a refugee camp with no home. I can never do anything to help you. What do you do to help people like me?" And I look at that picture every single day in my office. And friends of mine have asked for copies of it, and they haven't.
Could you tell the story about the Dalai Lama and the photograph?
Oh, God, yeah. Incidentally, he is one of the most wonderful people, either Marcel or I have ever met in our life. And I remember the last time he was in Washington. Just the very gentle way he said goodbye to Marcel. Say, "I've always loved you and Patrick. I don't see you again in this world. I will in the next one." But I negotiated for years to take a commercial delegation to Tibet. Chinese finally agreed. And I talked to the Dalai Lama several times about it. And we went over to Frank Senator Stafford. It was his last year in the Senate. They asked he and his wife to come and join us. We went over it. The Chinese secret police would take us everywhere. They didn't want us loose with the Tibetans. And I knew they were blocking my room, so I slipped notes to the other members. Play along with something in the room. So like about the third day we were there, we all got down to the lobby of the hotel. And I said to the secret police report, I said, "You guys have been working so hard. Why don't you take the day off? We know our way around it. We just go for a walk. Take your time. Or get a bite of there, just charge it to my room." And we talk directions. And they tried like hell to catch up with us. And Senator Stafford and I, and this tall, we told this staff person carrying my camera equipment and all, he's actually one of our intelligence people who spoke the language. And we went through this kind of like a junkyard, and there was a man in work clothes holding a little child. And he held up a picture of the Dalai Lama and showed it to me. Now the guy following was about 5'5", and he couldn't see what was there, purposely saying. And he pointed to my camera. I assumed he meant go take a picture because he would have gone to prison. He'd been seen with that. He made it very clear he wanted me to take his picture. So I would snatch that, it was filmed, and left. And by the time we were by him, he didn't see the picture. He dropped it down his sleeve. Our intelligence guy went back when he was alone with him and said, "Why did you listen for that?" He said, "They have to know." We were back, Marcel Rover, about 2 weeks after we got back, we got a call from his Holiness, who was in Washington. He said, "I'd like to come and see you and Marcel. Talk about your pictures." I said, "Why, where are you staying?" "We'll go in and I'll come to your office." The three of us sat around in my office and took out all these pictures. Like in the Potala, where he had fled as a child, places he had not seen since he fled there. And of course, they had copies for him. And then we gave him that picture and told him the story. Now he has an infectious laugh, laughter stop. Very quiet. I said, "Holiness, this is your picture." And he has that now. I've got it actually in my book, and let's see what it looks like. But that's what, you talk about we always have a camera. I could describe that, but you take one look at that picture, and you know what it is. And then if you're the spiritual leader who's been exiled from there ever since. And he sees it and understands this person is one who missed prison and his picture. Now, did get some fun of that when I went in the tall of the big temple. There's signs everywhere. No photographs allowed. Chief monk, and I'm like, Chief monk comes up to me quietly, says to me in English, His Holiness says you're a friend of his, and you like to take photographs. Take all the photographs you want. So I said, hell. I didn't say hell. So I started taking pictures. Chinese start to take their cameras out, and our translator heard say, if you take pictures, we will destroy your cameras. And she, but he's taking pictures. The greatest sad moment, he goes, no, he's not.
The Leahy law is now come back into the media. I wonder if you can explain to us what the Leahy law is and what were your motivations in passing that law?
We give aid to military units all around the world. And unfortunately, I think especially early on in Central and South America, some of those units would carry out arbitrary killings, line people up, shoot them out, and all. And I wrote in a law, which others call it Leahy law, the Department of Defense and the Department of State, which said that any military unit doing that, and people are doing that, they cannot get any American aid of any kind, especially military aid. And I know the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff was here a few years ago. He's speaking at one of our colleges, and he was talking about it. He said, you know, we sit there threatened all, but we follow it, and we know that it has saved tens of thousands of lives by the Leahy law. And we have it everywhere. We have working combat people, we have Leahy experts. And one place I've urged them to apply it has been to Israel, when they have, especially the Palestinian territories, not Gaza, but on the other side. And we had documented the stories of misuse of the military, including the killing of people, and tried for successive administrations to apply the Leahy law. And we had others who wanted to, because they said, you can't say, well, we apply it here, but not here. And we did know. Now, it's become a big issue. The Washington Post asked me to do an op-ed piece explaining it. And of course, like everybody, I was horrified by that last attack on a music festival and the children, men and women who were killed, raped, tortured. Of course that's what we, of course we condemn it. Of course those people should be punished, but they don't get money from the United States. And in going after them, I have heard how you follow the Leahy law, especially a number of children who died from bombings, from tank attacks and so on. And now it has been applied in a small unit because of some of the things that happened to Palestinians by Israel for the first time. And when the Washington Post published my op-ed, they got inundated with notes that people put in. The majority positive. Others, what the hell is somebody from a little state like Vermont telling us what to do? Well, let me tell you, Mr. Man. No, I just, obviously, I was a senator for 48 years. I was the president for 10, I was third month to the presidency. I took that, I never took that lightly. I never took the positions that I had lightly. And I thought, why be there? Why be there? I didn't want just for the title by any means. I wanted to accomplish something. If you're not willing to do it. So now there's a big debate going on in the U.S., among our allies, in Israel, and elsewhere, on the Leahy law. I'll leave it to the experts to debate it. And it's not that we haven't been defending. Look at when Iran launched the number of missiles, cruise missiles, bombs, rockets against Israel. If they had had the U.S. or a European and one of our Arab allies helping to defend them, the country would have disappeared. Instead there was just minimal damage. And to Israel's, in my mind, to Israel's credit, they said, okay, we just showed you none of your rockets could get through. And Israel said, jets don't get picked up by radar, and dropped a couple bombs just to make the point right near the Iran's nuclear facility. And showing we could have just as well gone on the other side of this parking lot and blown up here. So they make their point. That's fine. I think that was a wise thing to do. Now stop. Or as my Italian grandma would say, basta.
Okay, so you've called Marcel your secret weapon. And I think most Vermonters who've met Marcel know that she, in her straightforward, honest way, can disarm anybody and talk to anybody and make anybody feel comfortable talking to her. How has Marcel's superpower of being able to talk to anybody and make people feel at ease helped you when you've traveled the world in your highfalutin positions? And I wanted to focus more particularly on Cuba, because not everybody knows about the depth of your relations with the Castro brothers.
Well, first, when we had dinner late one night with Fidel Castro, along with Jack Reed, senator from Rhode Island, speaks very fluent Spanish. And every time I disagree with Fidel, he turned to Marcel and said, I'm not going to talk to him. I'll talk to you. You're a nurse. You're the humanitarian. And 2 minutes later, he'd be right back arguing. But the biggest change in that was his brother. His brother, Howell Castro, became president. He said he would not meet with any U.S. officials because he felt they were not getting treated fairly by Guantanamo or anything else. We were having lunch, it was at Marcel Lee at lunch with the foreign minister, I got a call. It was Castro. He said, I've talked to my brother and I'd like to see you. This is like, so I said, well, I have a Republican senator, the Republican side of the delegation can't bring he and his wife. Okay, but that's it. The rest of them can't come. So Dick Shelby, who as things turned out, his wife was a professor at Georgetown and taught Cubans, which is very helpful. But we get in there, and I thought, well, I'll try to break things down. I said, well, you know, Will, in our country, we think of things you did wrong, and you think of things we did wrong. You're a bigger country, you did more things wrong than we did. Well, this is really going well. I said, what about I tried to again the same thing? I said, well, what about, you know, people our age should be able to live forever? I'm older than you are. I said, well, wouldn't it be nice if our children and our grandchildren saw a different world? I have a great-granddaughter. I explained to myself, I said, oh, Mr. President, do you have a picture of her? Well, yes, I do. Isn't she beautiful? Do you have pictures of your grandchildren? No. Oh, the next time you come, bring the picture of your grandchildren. The whole atmosphere changed. Half the conversation went to Marcel and to Dr. Shelby, who taught the kids. And then Castro waves off the security people and comes down the elevator with us. You can hear these guys running down the stairs. And the outside goes, open the door for them. Next time we came, first thing he said, do you have pictures of your grandchildren? And we did. Thank goodness we brought glasses with Leahy. Now 3 of our grandchildren are white, 2 are biracial. Our son-in-law is African American. And you see sometimes on TV, he's been one of Obama's photographers, now he's the vice president's photographer. But he's looking at them and he said, oh, this one was the same age as his great-granddaughter. She's like her. Look at it. Why don't you bring her next time? Well, I made the mistake of telling Sophia that. She said, okay, Grandma, I'm ready to go. I said, well, do well. She's nice, do well in Spanish. She got straight A's. And I brought her down with me. And we had a delegation. And I paid for her airfare, of course. And when Castro was walking her around, and he showed me the picture, he said, see, you look just alike. Look at that. And he said, and he gives her a laminated picture of his great-granddaughter. So the next day when the senators are saying at breakfast, wow, Sophia, the president gives you a laminated picture of his great-granddaughter. I said, well, I give you pictures of yourself all the time. Yes, but you don't laminate them the way you've got to up your game. Within a week, she had 5 laminated pictures of me. But the thing is, it became obvious in talking to Castro, a lot of his personal stuff. You had people shouting and carrying on, and people who didn't. And when the so-called Havana syndrome came out, and somehow people were being penetrated by some sound beam, well, I also know this was happening in some other places around the world where there weren't any Cubans. A small outpost in China, among others, a couple others in more than the classified area. And I called Castro and I said, look, send your FBI down. They never allowed them to do it. Send your CIA. Send anybody you want. They can look at anything you want. We are not the ones doing it. And unfortunately, he sent things back by those who didn't want to have opening. Senators like Menendez and Rubio. They wanted to block any openings to Cuba. I think it's been a terrible mistake that we blocked it so long. I mean, here's a tiny country, not a threat to us. What would it be like if we woke up one day and there's a couple of Russian large missile-firing cruisers in their bay where they have a perfect right to be in the international water, and not a damn thing we can do about it. Fortunately, they haven't done that. China and Russia both wanted to invest in Cuba. And what it's done is enabled the remaining hardliners in Cuba to stay that way. It's been a real failure of both Republican and Democratic administration. We did accomplish something with Leahy Gonzalez and got Barack Obama to come down to Cuba. The first U.S. president to go to Cuba since Calvin Coolidge. I was a very junior senator at that time.
Can you just tell the story of how you helped with your informal relations with Cuba to get Alan Gross, a USAID contract employee out of prison in Cuba, back here? Because it's an espionage story that somebody should make a movie about, and you and Marcel should just pick which actors should play you all. But it's an amazing story.
Alan Gross is the most amazing person. He was down there working with a Jewish group to get things in the Jewish community, computers and so on. And he was arrested as a spy and locked up in a quick trial. I mean, there was well, we used a legal term, Your Honor, it was a bullshit trial. And
I read that case.
you read that? And locked him up, he's going to get a number of years. And he was just getting despondent. His wife came to see me. We were afraid he was going to commit suicide. I went down to Cuba and I go to visit him. And I talked to Castro about it. Teresa from my office put him down several times. We go back and forth and visit him. Anytime I have a camera, the Cuban photographers would come in and stand there with him. And we stand there like this. So small. Then I'd stand in front of the Cuban photographer. I had the same one every time. He's about 5'3". And I'd block it. I'd pull out my camera. And I would have a big spot on it. Like those pictures for his wife. And I would bring pictures back and forth with his wife. And Castro knew I was doing it. And we would talk about it. And they had 3 people being held in the U.S. as spies. And they had been spies. But basically, much as stuff they're spying, you could have gotten on watching the news or buying newspapers. And one of our planes from anti-Cubans from Miami flew down over Havana. The third time it did, they shot it down. Now, if you had a plane from Havana flying over Miami, what do you think we would do? And so they're going to give these guys life in prison. And I'm trying to work out a swap. And the wife of one of them came to Marcel and said, I let you tell the story, Marcel, but said basically, I watch you and your husband, how he'll do whatever you ask him to. I have always been in love with my husband since we were teenagers. I'm getting older, I want to have this baby. And can you arrange it? Well, I've had certain requests, like, bring rum back and things like that. But, so we went back and we worked with our then attorney general, who was a very good attorney general, and found one case where a prisoner had been on artificial insemination, which is not allowed in, technically, Cuba's a Catholic country, not allowed there. So we arranged for her, and the Cubans paid for her to go to Panama. And the first attempt didn't work. Second attempt, she did get pregnant. And I'm working back and forth all this time. And I said, look, why don't we just wrap this up? Bring everybody back. So here's one, and if you you do, I think I can convince President Obama to come down, make a visit. So 4:30 one morning, or the night before, we were in session late, and Marcel's birthday. Our son-in-law and our daughter and the kids to take her out for her birthday. He gets a call from the White House, and he said, I'm sorry, I have to be on President's backup plane at 4:30 tomorrow morning. Well, he said, what? It's top secret. She said, Beryl A, you'll be having breakfast with Patrick on that plane. And here's what happened. Big blue and white, the United States of America. Plane takes off. There's myself, then Congressman, now Senator from Maryland, Howell Bruce's wife, and Lawrence, our son-in-law, to take the photographs for history purpose. We take off. An unmarked plane takes off with the 3 Cuban prisoners left. They completely unmarked, actually had fake numbers. Also the CIA takes off. That goes to one airport where people didn't know that they'd been holding a CIA agent under a death charge, but they had used it. It was going to pick him up. The other one was going to bring the 3 Cuban prisoners back. They radioed the White House as soon as their airport. President's up in the family quarters. Signs 3 partners. And we take off. We land just about the same time at 3 different airports. Alan has people come to his cell. He didn't know he was going to be released. He said, pick up all your clothes. Pick up everything you have. He does. He goes out expecting to get in the prison van. There's a beautiful car. Driver gets in that. Drives to this airport he'd never seen and walks in with all this food. He looks out the window. Taxi right up almost in the front door of this huge blue and white United States of America. And at that time you didn't see anything like that in Cuba. And he's watching the first person down the stairs is our son-in-law. And he'd seen pictures of him and recognized because he wanted to, he was taking the history. Next to her, his wife and I. We walked in, threw our arms around each other. I said, Alan, do you want to go home? Sorry. He said, Patrick, I do. 36 minutes later, we're taxiing for takeoff. And he's sitting there, and there's a big conference room in the airplane. All these TV sets have got news on it. And one has early morning news. There's an unconfirmed report that Alan Gross has been released from Cuban prison. I'll confirm it. And then the other one has where we are. And we're just crossing over the Florida Keys. I said, Alan, you're in the United States. You're home. There's a lot of tears just in the steward comes in and says, Mr. Gross, the president's on the phone. Are you able to take the phone call? I said, Alan, it's not a collect, take it. And he wanted me to go. I said, no, it was in the president's private room, and he and his wife, and they talked to the president. And I came in one of my favorite photographs, one of Marcel's too. They're standing where there's a big chair, desk chair. They're standing with a hand on each other's, just looking at each other. They just on a phone, President of the United States saying, welcome back home. You don't forget those things.
invite you to ask any questions that you have. John, do you have a microphone?
And it is live.
Yep, it's live. Is there anyone who has any questions? There's one right there.
Where do you see the first one?
Thank you. Senator, if I could bring something
Picture of my book.
up to modern day, maybe abruptly. Is there any, or is there no judicial protocol that can be brought to bear on Judge Amy Cannon in Florida to get things moving in a timely way?
I think you should plead the Fifth Amendment.
I think it's unfortunate she's taking so long. That's why I'm not a member of the Florida bar, but I am a member of the federal bar. And I think it's unfortunate. I have no problem with her saying she supports Donald Trump and vote for him. That's fine. That's her right. But the law is the law, and it should be treated the same for everybody. I'm not going to put the two judges on that. But you would never see either one of these judges who have enormous experience in all kinds of trials. You would never see them make orders like that. And I think you'll find that any lawyers who have appeared before them in their courts know they get an honest, fair treatment.
Senator, I've noticed, I've followed your career since I've been in Vermont. And I know that you've always been pro-Israel, and since you brought up the Leahy law and the Israel question, I want to know how you would suggest that our delegation vote against or for continued military aid with the idea that Israel is being attacked daily from Hezbollah in the north and still to this day from Hamas in the south, and as we have seen from Iran as they wanted to do. I'm very interested in how you would deal with this. Thank you.
As you know, the defense of Israel and the attack by Iran, I supported that. We all did. Iran is a purveyor of terrorism and should be stopping that. But if we're going to use the Leahy law around the world, we cannot say it applies only to this country, that country. It has to apply everywhere. I worry, let me go back a little bit of history. I worry that the Palestinians have a weak leader, Hamas, that the Israeli leader, Netanyahu, is as concerned about the criminal charges that are pending against him and holding power. And remember, it wasn't Netanyahu government that once a month would send bribe money to Israel from an Arab country to Hamas, thinking that would hold them up. And they lessen their defenses, their electronic defenses and others, even as Hamas was practicing on all of the drive vehicles and whatnot outside that fence. I mean, it was complete failure there. I look back in history where Israel and Jordan are trying to figure out, they fought against each other. Ishaq Rabin had fought against Jordan and King Hussein. King Hussein had fought against Ishaq Rabin and Israel. I was at talk about at the signing of the peace treaty between the two countries. I met privately with both Rabin and with Hussein, I got to know well. Each of them told me the exact same story. As they're trying to negotiate some kind of a peace agreement, they were stuck on somewhere. King Hussein called Rabin and said, why don't the two of us meet? I remember this, Rabin's got a price on Hussein's head, Hussein's got a price on Rabin's. Why don't the two of us meet and we'll work this out? Prime Minister Rabin thought it meant, well, Geneva or something. Hussein says, no, I'll come to Israel. Where he'd been promised to be captured, we never did. Rabin said, I'll meet you there. There's the Allenby Bridge. Half of it's in Israel, half of it's in Jordan. I know this because I've been there. It's guarded by Jordanians on one side and the Israelis on the other. A fleet of cars pull up. The king gets out all this, surrounded by security. He waves them away, walks alone across the bridge into Israel. There's a price at his head. Rabin tells the driver to get out, holds the door for the king, it's in, and Rabin drives off, of course, followed, I'm sure, by security guards. The two of them sit for a period of time, and they work everything out. Rabin drives the king back, and he said, thank you. He said, I'll walk you back home. Prime Minister Rabin walks with him into the country where there's a price on his head. And when he gets to the other end, the two of them stand face each other and salute. So I asked them both the exact same question. To the king and to the prime minister. I said, did you fear for your safety? They each gave me the exact same answer. No. He's a soldier, he gave me his word I would be safe. And I remember being at King Hussein's funeral, going over there with President Ford, President Clinton, President Carter, President George H.W. Bush. Remember, these are people who defeated each other. And sitting around talking. And they had heard that story. I said, why can't we get back to that? Because Palestinian leadership has failed, the Israeli leadership has failed. The extending the settlements was a mistake. They should have reached a point and said, here, tell the Palestinians, okay, you can have your country there, but you're going to follow certain areas that other countries do of openness, of safety, but we will also keep you safe from our settlers. And now it's come to a point, I don't know how I could stop it. But how many pictures of children with their heads blown out do you want to see? How many non-combatants do you want to see? Is the mosque terrible? Yes. Would I love to see the mosque destroyed? Yes. But I want to see tens of thousands of innocent civilians die at the same time? No. Answer the question? No.
So,
But not like the answer, but that's my answer.
so let's have one more question, since it's getting a little bit past 9 o'clock. Here's one.
A Supreme Court question. Whenever there's a nomination, there's a sentiment from some people that they shouldn't be lifetime appointments. There should be a fixed term, 15, 20 years, whatever. There should be staggered terms so that presidents are always having an opportunity to nominate someone. what would be the pros and cons of not a lifetime appointment?
The pro of the lifetime, of course, is that it's supposed to give you independence. The con of it would be that you get completely isolated from the way people feel. Now, the isolation can be good because you're supposed to follow the law. I'm not trying to duck your question. I don't know the answer. I've gone back and forth on this. I've been in debates with, not debates, but discussions with senators in both parties, people that I admire and work with who've taken different positions. And maybe because I knew I'd never been voting on it, I never reached a decision. Now, I have talked to some members of the Supreme Court without their kind of law. John Paul Stevens is a good friend of mine, and he talked to me about his plans to leave and did, and told me I could notify the president the day before he made it public, which I did, and kept his on that. Justice Breyer, the same way, and Justice New Hampshire, each one of them had invited me in to talk to me about whether they'd leave or not. One justice I had talked to about leaving told me that would make any difference because we're going to elect a Democrat in the next election. Her replacement would be one, the other replacement was made by Donald Trump. And I'm worried, and with Trump, I mean, obviously, I'm not surprised when the president feels more comfortable with somebody more akin to their political president. Biden, I think, is about today, they confirmed the 200th of his judges, which is a record number. But I still, I've argued before Vermont Supreme Court many times for a Secretary of the Court of Appeals. My one case I had before the Supreme Court, I filed a motion to dismiss the case on the other side, and they did it by procuring, but I said, no, I want to argue it. But I always felt that when I came there, before those courts, that whichever side I was on, I was going to get a fair hearing. I worry if the Supreme Court reaches a point where people think it's a preordained decision.
Well, I want to thank you all for coming tonight, and Beryl, I want to also thank you for coming up from Washington, D.C., although people should know that Beryl actually lives on Lake Dunmore. And Patrick, I just am so appreciative of you coming and sharing your observations. Really, this was intended to be an affirmation from the people around Middlebury for all that you have done for all of us for so many years. But what I've noticed here is that in you talking about your career and your life and your observations, you showed the sense of justice and humanity which underpinned all of those decisions that you made for so many years. And it's sort of an experience for all of us to actually recognize that a person of your esteem has such compassion and has such a sense of justice. I think that's the experience for all of us. So, thank you.
I'm here to the final